So quickly, the first thing I've noticed, and this is common, people come to me all the time, and it's always, this is exciting when it happens. I call this the shiny object syndrome, right? It's a big mistake a lot of people make that's preventing them from even making progress on their journey into, a tech job. People will come to me and say, hey Nnamdi, I'm trying to do this, your course, or this your program. And then I'm having a conversation with them and I'm telling them about the program and the details of it. And then they get a hint that we have another program. And then suddenly their interest shifts. And then they're asking, well, tell me about the Scrum Master thing you would do as well. Is that better for me than the DBA one? What do you think is good for me? And in the moment, you've shifted your focus from what you initially came for, right? A lot of people haven't decided on what paths they want to take. And so every trend looks like it for them. Right, and if you've experienced this, and if this is you, let me know in the comments in the chat out. But every trend looks like it's that for them. Today you hear somebody doing cybersecurity, and suddenly that's what you want to do. You move on from cybersecurity, you hear somebody else is doing data analysis, and that's what you want to do. Tomorrow somebody else is doing business analysis, and then you move on to that. And so now you've bought this training here. You've done it for 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and you didn't get to the end of it, and then you heard the next one was trending, and you say, you know what, let me try this one out. I've literally had people talking to me, and they say, actually right now I'm doing a training, but I still want to try out DBA. No, the two things you're doing are unrelated. That's shiny object syndrome. You have your hands in many things and you can't complete any one of them, right? The level of effort required for this, and I'm going to talk about this down the road, is so much, but that's preventing you from being able to get the results you want. Right? I promise you, pick a pattern, stay there, right? Stay focused. People look at, tech careers like, okay, one is more important or one is superior to the other. No, in terms of income, in terms of how much we make, once you're in that higher tier, those higher tier roles in tech, the salary becomes a function of what you negotiate, right? The salary range is about the same for the most part. You're in those higher paying tech roles, it's about the same salary, give or take. It comes down to what you negotiate. That's what you get paid. It's not necessarily about the job itself. The job itself is not going to pay you, right? It's a range, it's a market value, and that's it. And it cuts across the board. So find one path and stay there, right? Focus, say this is what I'm going to do, and then give it your best. You will see the results, right? But you can't keep dancing from one career path to the other, start and stop, do a training for 4 weeks, and then you stop before you see the end of it, and you on to the next one. You're going to spend a year and realize you've just danced around so many things and you've not made any progress anywhere. All right, so that's the first mistake I see people making, right? Is shiny object syndrome. They want to move with every trend. They want to move with every, they want to do everything they see people are doing. The next syndrome or mistake I see people make when they're trying to get into tech is they have imposter syndrome. And I call this imposter syndrome because this is people just believing they don't have what it takes, right? I can't count how many times people have told me when they know what I do or realize I'm in tech, they go, wow, you must be super smart. They say, what did you study in school? What did you get your master's in? Like, I had in computer science and information systems. Wow, you must be super smart. You must be really. It's like there's a category of human beings that are supposed to be able to do these things, and there's a group of people who are not naturally endowed enough to do this, right? And so you disqualify yourself before you even give yourself a shot, right? That is being unfair. I'd rather you try and fail than fail yourself before you even try, right? That is, you're not doing yourself, you're denying yourself of opportunities. I promise you might get into this thing and then go and love it. You might get into this and do excellently well, right? So stop telling yourself you're not smart enough or this is for a specific group of people, right? That is not accurate. I promise you, I have seen people who conventional wisdom will say they are not qualified to be learning database administration or writing TCP code, and they've gone on and they put their head down and put in the work, and they are killing it in the marketplace today. I can call names, but I won't name names. Right? I know I've been in this game for a long time, and I've helped many people get in. I've trained so many people. Like, I've seen people. It's not about it's not a talent. It's not a gift. There's no talented person. There's nobody who was born with a brain that naturally can write code, right? We're gifted in different areas, right? There are certain things that you might have affinity for, and that's why the first mistake I talked about is very important. Find a path that works. I've done trainings in the past about identifying what works for you. In fact, we've done a workshop before on just choosing, your tech careers and, exploring those options. But once you choose a path, stick with it. Stop jumping around. Some people believe you must be proficient with computers. You must be a computer guru. You must know how to tear things down and put them together inside the computer to go into tech. That's a mistake. That's wrong, right? Some people believe it's about writing code. You must know how to write code, or you must love to write code. If not, you are ineligible to get into tech. And again, these are fallacious statements, right? There are people who work in tech today who have not written a single line of code. Can I tell you something interesting? There are platforms today that will build you a full application. I'm talking about full apps that are very functional, that don't require a single line of code, right? So you can literally bear the title of a software developer, a UI UX developer. When you hear that, you think you must be writing C# and Java, and they haven't written a single line of code. There are programs, there are apps we use today where the people who built it didn't write a single line of code. So it's not, technology has evolved so much and tech has evolved so much to where it is beyond, it is no longer just people that can code. Like coding, tech is not coding. It's part of it, but there are other ramifications, in tech. All right, so that imposter syndrome is just you lying to yourself or believing a lie that was made up by your villagers. All right, so that's not a requirement. All right, again, let me get feedback in the chat if you're following. The next mistake I've seen people make is they ignore their transferable skills, whether it's tech skills or soft skills, right? You already have some experience. People feel like, well, all I've done is accounting, all I've done is marketing, all I've done is support, and so it doesn't transfer. I don't think I can find my place here. And that's one thing I try to let people know, like, these skills matter. I promise you, if you are an excellent communicator and you get into a tech role, you are going to stand out so much. You don't realize, like, if you know how much it is they need for tech people who can fluently communicate their thoughts, who can take technical concepts, simplify them, and then communicate that to business folks, right, for business intelligence reasons. If you can do that, you will be highly sought after, and that is not a tech skill, right? If you can organize, if you can create documents and organize documents, right, do like when we do like maybe a root cause analysis and RCA, and then you can go in and intelligently document the events that led to an error that we experienced, and you can document that thoroughly, put in the right kind of graphics. Just being able to type emails clearly is a powerful tool. Maybe you used to be an accountant and you were very good with Excel and spreadsheets. That's already the foundation you need to be a data analyst or a database engineer somewhere, right? So whether it's a technical skill or a non-tech skill, whether it's a soft skill or just something you do really well, a lot of these skills are transferable skills. So people just look at what they already do and feel like it's not relevant. The things that I'm good at don't have a place in tech. I promise you they do. On last week's Saturday, I believe, myself and my wife, we did a workshop, just how to get into tech in 2024. And one of the things we talked about was some roles that are positions in tech, some are technical and non-technical roles, in tech. There's again a lot of roles today in tech that don't require some of these conventional technical skills that we talk about, right? And so don't throw away, don't disqualify yourself and say, well, this is all I'm good for. It doesn't really count. The things you can do, I promise you have a place. All you need to do is take your time to figure out, where will my skill set shine? Where can I easily take the things that I already done and go and be successful, right? So maybe it's not Scrum, maybe it's not database administration, maybe it's not cybersecurity. There's something else, right? And so it's about doing your due diligence. It's about taking your time but a lot of your skills, don't disregard the skills you already have. That would be a huge mistake, because those things you'd consider not significant. They are the things that help you stand out. See, a lot of times people don't realize your soft skills are more valuable than these tech skills that we think are so. You can, no matter how good a programmer is, you can find somebody equally as good. No matter how good you are at writing scripts, right, or or tearing down the computer and then rebuilding it back. Maybe you're really proficient with going into the motherboard of a laptop and fixing things in there. No matter how proficient you are at doing those technical things, quote unquote, you are still replaceable. You can find the next, because you didn't make those things. But you see these natural God-given abilities that we have. You can literally stand with the best in the world and say, you know what, I can hold my own against the best public speakers, right? And if you can take that skill into a job and utilize your superpower, it's going to help you keep rising. There are people who I know who have gone through my programs and they never really completely grasped all the technical concepts, but they got the jobs first, because when they get to interviews, they can clearly communicate their thoughts. And I've seen people who are really good with the tech. They know what they're doing in front of the computer, but during the interviews, nobody's giving you a computer to do what we do. They need you to be able to convey your thoughts clearly. So being able to, take technical concepts and make it make sense to somebody, to where they can judge your ability from what you say, that's powerful, right? So don't stop training away your soft skills, the things you already do well. They will help you be excellent when you get into tech. All right, next one. This is the fourth one. The next mistake people make trying to get into tech is they don't network enough, right? Opportunities like what we're doing right now, we're here, we're talking about tech. We're hanging out on a Saturday or Friday evening, having a conversation, right? There are people who are looking to get into tech but don't have any tech people in their network. They can't pick up their phone and call one person who is into tech, right? They've never been to a meetup. They've never been to a gathering or a conference or a session where there's other people who are, in tech or doing what they are looking to do. Listen, if you want to get in, well, the power of networking is such that there are certain things you will never learn from studying, but by being around people who are already doing what you're trying to do. Like, this applies whether you're trying to get in or even when you're in. There are things you will never be able to do very well until you get around people who are doing this on a daily basis. I remember myself when I was actually trying to break in, and this is when I was trying to get a job, trying to navigate the the shenanigans around, getting into the workforce in the US, right? Several years back, it was about 12 years now. And I was, again, my whole thing was I had a limited time to get a job because I was on a student visa, OPT, long story. And so even though I had signed up for a program to learn database administration, I didn't have the time to go through it. And so I was doing a lot of self-learning, right? And I was going through the materials and I was watching YouTube videos and I was digging in every day. I was spending late in nights. But I was immersed in fact, where I stayed with my friend who I was living with at the time, who was already in the field. Every day he would come back from work and he would say, what are you working on? And then because he was excited, we'll start geeking out, right? He will come down, we'll sit, he will try to do, and then we'll break things, we'll try it again. And in doing that, my confidence was growing because now I could have conversations with this guy and I know he was good. He was doing this, he had been doing it for a while, right? And so my confidence was growing. There were so many people who would come to the house then who were all doing the same thing. In fact, we used to run a mini training thing at the apartment where we stayed there. People would come. So I started me connecting with guys who were already working. I was connecting with guys who I saw them start and get a job. And so when my turn came, I wasn't afraid anymore because I had seen people go through the journey. When I felt like I was ready to start to hit the work, to hit the job market, because I was immersed in a community of people who were doing database, right? It was an easy call for me to make. So when I put my resume online with my full chest, knowing even though I knew I wasn't ready, my first couple of interviews were horrible, but I came back and I took it with my full chest, right? Because I knew, because I was surrounded by people who, I could go back and give them feedback, or I could tell them this is what happened and they would give me feedback, right? So just being immersed in a community of people who are doing what I was trying to do helped me break in. And by the time I went for my third and fourth interview, I got a couple of jobs to start, right? And so that's how you do it, right? So don't just stay in your house and hope that things will work out. Even if you're signing up for a program or you're doing a training somewhere, connect with, there's so many platforms to network now online. Go on find Facebook groups that are local in your area and see if there's hangouts for people who do what you do or who do what you're trying to get into. and just connect and see what people are talking about. That's how you're going to learn the trends in the industry. That's how you're going to learn what's going on. In fact, when it comes to job opportunities, there are so many job opportunities that are never announced. Like, you're not going to see an advertisement for them, you're not going to see them on LinkedIn, but internally we know that my company is hiring, and so we're looking for people. You know, we get the referral bonus when we get people to come in and interview. Companies will give preference to internal referrals, right? Because the people who already work for them know their culture, know what they do, so they will recommend the best people. How do I find who I'm going to recommend? It's from people in my circle. So if you want to get those opportunities, you have to be in the circle as well, right? So don't stay in your house and hope everything is just going to align itself. Even if you're an introvert, find meetups, find conferences, find things going on, find just local gatherings, right? Go online, see what's going on in your area. Go on Google, what's happening in my area. Check on Facebook, tech meetups or tech groups in my community, right? Database hangouts. Find something. Look for groups online. Go on LinkedIn. There's so many groups, right now. LinkedIn has a LinkedIn groups feature. Find communities on LinkedIn and join them. And don't just join and be passive. Engage in conversations. Connect, ask questions, intentionally reach out to people, right? Make meaningful connections within those communities, especially the virtual ones. And that's how you start building meaningful connections. This is a tip I normally teach in class, but I'll go ahead and share it here. One of the things I have my students do when they start applying for jobs is, on your LinkedIn profile, start connecting with other people who are already in the field. Because for me, as a person who is trying to figure out whether you're legit or not, if I come on your profile and you don't have enough connections who are in the same field as you, it feels like, how are you doing this when there's nobody in your connections who is doing the same thing? So networking. People don't network enough, and it's hindering them from getting opportunities. So they feel like, oh, I've done everything. I've taken the classes. I went through your program. I did this or that. But you did it and you sat home. That's a mistake. All right, let's go on to the next one. I think this is number 5. Another mistake, and this is a huge one people make, is they underestimate the amount of time and the level of effort required. And this is a function of just, maybe you know somebody who has done this or doing IT, and then maybe you knew them before they got into tech, and they simplify their journey to you. Like, well, if they can, I can. And so you minimize the level of effort involved. Now go ahead and say this. Everything of value comes at a price, right? And I don't mean, in this case, it's going to cost you something. Time, effort, energy, right? If anybody just comes and tells you, I'll show you. Now that's why I despise some of these promotions people do online, where you see ads and they tell you, let me show you a simple way that I made 100,000 in 3 days without, and you're like, that's not how it works, right? Nobody, so it takes effort, it takes time. Is it difficult? No. But it's not difficult, but it's tedious, right? To get into a completely new field where you might not have a background in it, you might not have done anything in this before. It's probably going to involve you're probably going to have some growing pains, right? And so I want to demystify that. I don't know, again, I've spoken to so many people who have come to me with this mindset, where they'll come out like, well, it's not this, can I, literally, the amount of time people come and meet me and tell me, your program is too long. Can't I do it in 3 weeks? I really need to finish and get a job. I'm like, oh boy, what do I tell this person? Right? That's and that's why all of these guys who are selling 3 days or more solutions make a lot of money, because people are looking for very fast, solutions. And then you go and pay these guys, they promise you a very quick solution, bombard you with information, and then disappear on you. And then you don't get anything out of it, because they didn't go into the details. If you're going to do this and do it properly, it's going to require effort, it's going to require time, it's going to require spending hours and hours. And the average person who is trying to get into tech, transitioning from tech, is already busy. A lot of us already have families. You have your work that you're doing, you have your relationship, you have different things, you have friends, you have things to tend to, you have your hobbies that you have to tend to. And so it's not like you're dropping everything you're doing to focus on doing this one thing, right? So it's not a switch, you flip a switch and then that's it, you're in. And so people underestimate the level of effort, and that's why a lot of people, when they start and it feels like, okay, it's getting a bit challenging, they're ready to quit, because in their mind somewhere it was supposed to be, I'll go through this and I'll get a job. I'll just go through, sit through class. And so I've seen people, they don't want to do my project, they don't want to do the assignments, and I say, hey, this is your assignment for the week. That's how you actually become good at this thing. And they struggle because it wasn't part of the things they factored into the process. To them it was show up for all of the classes, sit through it, when it's done, I'll get my job. And that's not how it works. That's underestimating the level of effort required. Again, if you put in the requisite effort into learning any of these things, it becomes easy. But if you don't, then it's going to be a long process. All right, so that's another mistake a lot of people make. The next one I want to talk about is people prioritizing certifications over proficiency. We like, human beings, like the validation of a paper. Right? There's people feel good about being validated by a piece of paper that says I've done something. So if you go on LinkedIn, everybody's posting, check out my new achievement or my news, and so I'm now, I completed something. People share with pride. Some people take a screenshot and post it on Instagram, right? Because it's a lot of validation for us, for all of the, it's like it's a proof of our hard work. But the thing about certifications is they are not a parameter to show me that you've moved from rookie or not knowing anything about this space to becoming proficient to where I want to give you 6 figures. A certification will not tell me that. In fact, I'll tell you, in my 11 years of doing database administration, in my close to 18 years of being in the tech, IT industry, I've been privileged to be part of interview panels, both as the panelist or the interviewer, and also the interviewee. I've interviewed so many times, and not one time in all of my years of doing this, whether as a panelist, as an interviewer, or as a candidate, not one time has somebody asked me about my certifications. The only time certifications have ever come up, or my degree, my computer science and computer engineering degree has ever come up, it's only with recruiters. And they don't even look at it. Like once in a long while, somebody will mention, oh yeah, do you have a degree? Or, what's your degree in? And it still has never been a parameter for disqualifying anybody, right? So is it important to have certifications? Yes. But is that a requirement to, especially for somebody who just wants to get in? It's not a requirement. It doesn't tell me you know it. No matter the certification, if you have the right resources, if you have the right, if you're connected to the right information, if you can go buy the right brain dumps, you do the exam, you pass. And the interviewers know that. They are professionals, they've been in the game, they're probably certified also. So certifications don't weigh that much when you're trying to get in. Now, when do certifications matter? Right? I always tell this to my students. Save your certifications for when you get a job. Right? If you notice, every certification is renewed frequently. Right? As the technology changes, the certifying organization updates the certification, and so now people have to go back and recertify. Right? For most technology, Microsoft certifications, you see that there's some, what's the word now? Retired certification. So if you did MCITP 2008, it's retired, right? It doesn't count because the technology has moved on so far, right? So certifications are more for keeping up with the technology, right? So I always tell people, wait until you're in, use your certifications as a way to gain leverage, right? Use your certifications to, to negotiate for a pay raise. Use it to negotiate when you're trying to show what you've done, when you're having your appraisals with your boss and they are discussing whether to give you a raise or not, whether to get promoted or not. That's where you can say, hey, well, I got 2 certifications this year. I attended all of these conferences. This is how I'm showing I'm, improving myself so I can stay relevant in this company. I can, I'm staying sharp so I can do my job well. So that's where, because that's the objective of certification, is for you to stay on top of the technology, right? That's what it really is for. That's why you have to take them and retake them all the time. The whole idea is that's your way of staying sharp. It's designed to keep you up to date with what's new in the technology. So it's as long as you remain in a particular space, you're going to keep requiring certification. So it's not something for people who are trying to get in. It doesn't tell any story, right? It doesn't make your case better. When you stand or sit in front of the interview panel, and again, I'm talking from a whole lot of experience, the conversations are, this is what is going on within our environment. Can you help us? What would you do if this is presented to you? Right? They will give you scenarios and say, hey, let's assume this happens and you get a call like this. What steps will you take? Or what if this happens? What will you do? That's not certification. That is real life. That's what would you do if you're in this situation? Oh, I see in your resume you mentioned you've done this before. So let me tell you this is actually happening with us right now. And then they give you a scenario and a case study and ask you, how would you navigate that? What would you do in this situation? That's proficiency. How do you become proficient? By practice. Practice, spending hours. I tell people, ask me what's the time commitment. I tell people you have to find 6 to 10 hours a week. So let's put your 4 to 5 hours of, if you're taking my class, 4 to 5, 6 hours of class. You need an additional 5 hours outside of that to just practice, to just go in and grind and get comfortable with the technology. So that's always one thing I tell people, please find the time. I know you're busy, but find time. Find time to practice, because that's how you build proficiency. It's in your practicing, it's in your, going back and, trying and failing and fixing and resolving and investigating, breaking and fixing and breaking and fixing and doing it again and tearing down and rebuilding. That's how you build your confidence, because you're becoming more proficient. You start understanding, okay, that's exactly what it means. That's how it works. That's what happens when I do this. When you're in front of a panelist or an interviewer and they're asking you about a scenario you have gone through 1,000 times in your personal lab at home, now you can speak confidently because you have turned this upside down. You've practiced and practiced. Right? People always worry about years of experience. Well, I'm just trying to get in. How do I show my years of experience? And I always retort with this. Think of this as like flight, pilots. Pilots are not judged by the length of time they've been pilots. They're judged by their flight hours. Right? How long have you been in the air flying? Not how long have you held the certificate of being a pilot. The length of your certificate as a pilot doesn't mean you're as experienced. There are people who have been, let me use database administrators, for a long time. They've been DBAs for a long time, but they've stayed with the same company, doing the same thing, so they have the same mundane tasks. And so they can't do anything else aside of the things they do every day on their job. So if you try to have a meaningful conversation with them about the technology, because they haven't found ways to stay sharp, they're not practicing, they can't hold their own. But if you see their resume, they have 10 years of experience. So length of experience is not necessarily equal to proficiency. And that's what people are looking for. It's proficiency that will get you a job. It's your proficiency that will get you a job when you're in your interviews. Because in the interview, it's fair game. Nobody cares at that point. It's tell me what you can do. Can you help us? Are you able to resolve these issues when they arise? That's what the interviewers are looking for, is what do you bring to the table? Or are you at the table, right? So don't certifications are good. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying don't put too much emphasis on them. Instead, focus on becoming good at the technology. Become proficient. Become the best you can be in your chosen career path, and everything else will take care of itself. All right, the last but not the least, the last mistake people make, again, there's more, but these are the ones I want to focus on because of time. The last one I want to talk about is people think you can DIY your way into a tech job, right? Especially when you have no background. Now, I get somebody who has been in cybersecurity for long, or let's say a database administrator for the last 10 years decides, you know what, I want to try something else, right? Because when you're already in tech, you get to deal with other career paths. In fact, a lot of people transition naturally based on the requirements of their job. They can transition to different roles within the tech space, because again, there's no tech skill that is, in isolation. What I do some things that require me gaining knowledge of servers. I have some things that I do that help me, have forced me to become proficient in networking and virtualization. So I can speak fluently to VMware. I can speak fluently to some networking. I can talk about Windows clustering, right? Even though that's not my jam per se, because of what I do, I have to know what they do. And so it's easier for you to DIY your way into a new career if you are already in tech, if you're already a tech professional, right? However, if you are just looking to get in from the outside, trying to DIY your way is without a community, without mentorship, without guidance.